Da 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 da. Filling air while I try and figure out what I'm doing. Da da da. Welcome to Revolution Radio, freedomslips.com. This is Planet Collingwood Open Roundtable. My name is Monty Dean. A big thank you to Tony and the Y-Files crew. I'm not sure if that's the official name for it, but that's what I do. I comedic and give you labels as one does. If you enjoyed the last hour or two, depending when you joined, please go to the website revolution.radio or freedomslips.com and donate what you can to keep the station up and running with Studio A and B, and gives me a platform to try and share information in a comedic way, and I will start ruling you all through my subconscious ways, where I will be the infinite lord of all time and space. It's good to have goals. Not sure I'll attain them, but I've got a direction. Now, if you want to join us, because it's a full table. I walked into the green room and there was three lovely chaps sitting there going, "And where have you been?" Just on Skype, it is Monty_Dean or Freedom Screen on the Skype, and then we'll add you. I've been joined by Bruce MacDonald, John Wayne, not the actor, as well as the Viking. Gentlemen, how are we? Who would like to go first?
G'day.
Oh, that's a Canadian doing an Australian accent. And ladies and gentlemen in the United States, that's probably the closest you're going to get, because I've heard Americans do an Australian accent, and quite frankly, it's a bit shit.
Whoa, man. That's harsh.
Well, no, it is. It's very. Australian accents usually end up in South Africa. I'm just pointing out that it's a unique accent. The trick is to speak through your nose, so you keep your lips closed and the flies don't get in.
I see.
Yes.
I see.
So that's Bruce MacDonald. John Wayne, not the actor. Also, I've started putting my roundtables up on YouTube, and been putting guests as well. So you will have bracket, not the actor, and bracket after your name, John. Just giving you fair warning.
Oh, well, no problem. Yeah, good evening. Morning, evening, afternoon, all around the globe. I don't really know where you want to take your broadcast tonight, Lonnie, but I've been keeping a real close eye on these developments taking place out of China, and now globally. And it's after that. Thanks for having me on your broadcast tonight.
No, always a pleasure. And Viking, do you have? I can't think of a joke about Viking. How are you? I just had horns on helmets, which never happened.
Well, there's horns somewhere. I'll guarantee you that. I'm doing good.
Excellent. Actually, because I'm doing this type of thing now as a professional and doing the old research to try and seem like I come across as a bit professional. I've got about three articles. I won't read them. I'll just give you the premise of it. Are you familiar where the Olympics have about 2 to 3 months decide if they're going ahead because of the coronavirus, the outbreak, and the decision needs to be made by May. But now that's not really funny to start with. However, the IOC, the International Olympic Committee official, his name is Dick Pound. Yeah. In this day and age, I would go to Richard. So yeah, there's 25 minutes of like, yeah, hello, I'm Dick Pound. Oh well, yeah, okay, and I'm. Well, what's your avatar on the internet? Cock pummeler. Anyway, so I just wanted to share that much. The virus is not funny, but that at least is. And there's two other ones which apparently Holocaust education here in Victoria is now mandatory for year 9 and 10s, as well as I'll just quickly on this, the Australian, now we can because I know a couple of you gents look at the stock markets and everything else like that. The Australian Stock Exchange slumps another 2.3% as the Dow loses nearly 2,000 points in 2 days. I think this is a knock-on effect from the coronavirus. So,
So only 1,900 points in 2 days.
yeah, only 1,900. So yeah, I've laid the choices on the table, and we can play with these or come up with something else. So but yeah, Mr. Dick Pound. Yeah, either his parents didn't like him or he just likes to have people laugh at him.
Well, the Olympics, it's interesting. They're saying, well, we can host them in United Kingdom, right, or wherever this is. They're saying they're concerned. But I mean, the numbers are really starting to climb, and I've heard of mutations. I mean, it's really something else. I mean, I've been the past, I don't know, 2.5 hours putting the stuff. I mean, and I mean, that's just something. I mean, that's got the main crust of the news, And meanwhile, there's all kinds of other huge, massive, big stories that are breaking. You just have to sit back and admire it, I guess. It's
yeah, because
so.
yeah. Bruce came over to my house and put a knife to my throat, and we did a round table yesterday. That was interesting. And yeah, it was sort of pointed out where like the fear is being ramped up by the media, which it's we've dealt with. It's not a false flag, but it may be a psyop. It's it's not 50-50 black and white, one or the other. It's not left right. There isn't that duality because there is a virus out there and it's being used, and that's sort of where we're getting this thing where the people say, oh, the coronavirus hoax, and yet people are dying from it, and there's other people that aren't because it's 5%. But it's if we're at that point where we are co-creators of our reality and our thoughts create our reality from the placebo effect type thing, if you believe you'll get sick, you have more of a chance of being sick because you're thinking about it. Then on the flip side of that is if you're not worried about the virus, is the economy collapsing. And I was watching Razor Fist. It was kicked off YouTube because he was doing the Democratic debates. We can talk about that schmozzle as well. Hilarious. The Great Depression took a year for it to actually become a depression or be named the Great Depression. And because everything's moving so quickly, it's very hard for us to sort of analyze because, 24 hours, everything can change and stay exactly the same, which is very annoying because I feel like I'm repeating myself over and over again sometimes. Go ahead.
Well, I mean, the economy and everything, I mean, that's very important to look at, one thing like this, either concocted, very, very true to a certain extent, but it could be falsely misleading, never let a good crisis go to waste, but let's say, it says here, Germany, Switzerland, Croatia, Iraq, Spain, Algeria, Austria, Brazil, Italy, Australia, Malaysia, France, Vietnam, Canada, Kuwait, Macau, Taiwan, Singapore, South Korea, United States of America, Egypt, Finland, Belgium, Lebanon, Sri Lanka, Israel, Cambodia, Nepal, Oman, Afghanistan, Philippines, and China. And now it's also saying as well, let's see here, it says coronavirus spreads to Germany, Switzerland. I already went through all that. The cases explode in Italy by 45% in one day. And I guess it's a mutation or a morphed form of the virus, which is literally sweeping across Iran right now. So I mean, I don't know. Yeah, I think it's valid for all the reporting coming out from the sites that I'm actually getting the information from. I mean, the mainstream media, they tried to downplay this, and everything the mainstream media is doing anytime lately, it blows up in their face. So I mean, I think it's one of the most crises, if complete nowadays, faced probably like the Spanish influenza of 1918. I'm sorry, I could ramble on for hours.
Yeah. Your connection's a little bit wobbly as well, from my perspective. I'm not sure if anyone else is hearing it.
No, it is.
I'll try to reconnect.
I think try that just to boost it, because it's all the important words are a little bit I did notice, I think it was shared in the Revolution Radio Skype host chat, that San Francisco's in a lockdown or doing something, and I'm going to go a little bit comedic here. It's like, it's not the homeless junkies pooing in the middle of a sidewalk. No, it's a virus that may kill you. It's like it took that for San Francisco to kick in. I did find that interesting.
Well, San Francisco has one of the largest Chinese populations on the West Coast, so I can imagine how that is the case.
How many cases do they have documented? I mean, these things are really starting to chalk up now. Italy's got a real problem. Iran, there's some pretty big numbers. I'm Facebook friends with Leo.
They're saying 8,000 are self-quarantining in California. So, I mean, that's just self-quarantining. But the government itself, they were wanting to secretly move 50 patients from an Air Force base to a municipality, and the municipality freaked the hell out.
Uh-huh.
Now, is this because of the incubation period? If you catch it, it takes so long, or just failings in actually keeping it contained, where it's like, oh, you're fine, and then people walk in and they say hello to 40 people, and then it's a knock-on effect. We also have been yes, very quickly, just we'll say hello to our new guest, and then Bruce join in after. So HiJacker, just say hello, then Bruce, then John, and then HiJacker, you'll be able to get in line type thing, if that's okay.
Okay, I'm here. I'm coming through okay?
Yeah, you sound good. Yep,
okay,
Bruce.
Sounds great. Yeah, great.
Thank you.
All right.
Because
Well,
go ahead, Bruce, because I think HiJacker, you'll catch up to speed, and then just slide in. So Bruce, then John. Go ahead.
The first thing I want to say, in all seriousness, is that with God as my witness, HiJacker, I was not dropping you from the call last night. I promise you, man. I mean, I have a wicked sense of humor, and I like to take ownership of my jokes. I did not do that. I don't know if it was your phone or your internet connection or what. So
no, well, I'm inclined to believe you, especially when you invoke the God. But my computer, I've had like really weird stuff happening. That's something that has anybody else had strange things where your cursor moves and I mean.
Yeah.
If I can back up Bruce a little bit as well, when you dropped from the call, just very quickly so we don't lose the listeners, when you dropped from the call, someone else was talking. It wasn't it wouldn't make you wouldn't talk for about 30 seconds. Yeah, it's not funny, and there was no if you said something upsetting or anything. So the dropping was random in that respect. So yeah, I think that's most likely someone outside or the connection just decided no, it's kind of fascinating when that happens where something else is involved.
Yeah, well, I believe it, Bruce. So yeah, we're all good. Go ahead.
So I'll just quickly recap what we said last night. Very unusual virus. They've never seen anything like it. It can live 28 days outside of a body. There's a case of it going up 10 floors in an apartment building through a water pipe. And you can also, just because you have it once and survive doesn't mean that your immune system has built up a resistance, and a lot of people die the second time they get it. It's a very, very, very strange virus.
You're correct, Bruce. From what I'm hearing is the lethality rate comes from the second attack, I guess you could call it. After the immune defense system's been weakened significantly, the second payload hits, and then that's good night, Irene.
Yeah.
I heard somewhere today that they're trying to you can get it from a sewer, so they're trying to seal up sewers or something like that. It's see, that's the thing with we're in a weird time, and we're dealing with these weird things. So there's a lot of cloud or doubt, or I don't want to use a stronger word. It's not clean cut. That's basically what I'm saying.
Well, they're finding out now. A couple of guys did this interview. In fact, if you go to the Crow House or SGT report, they mirror this interview that these guys did, and these are a group of researchers, and they've been able to actually trace the actual coronavirus back to patents that were issued by this place in Great Britain that's actually tied to the Crown of England. And so literally the coronavirus is a virus that was created in one of the auxiliaries, one of the think tanks, private mercenary type corporations from the Crown itself. So literally the coronavirus came from the Crown of England. Unbelievable. Absolutely unbelievable. And they put it all together.
Yeah, and the use of the corona is actually, it's the corona and the cell that it breaks it down, which is fascinating because that also corona, which leads to crown as well. And it's interesting wordplay. Did they mention how it got from England to Wuhan?
No, what they did is they did the research to find out all these shell corporations, and they went back through some history, where they got the money from the Bank of England and how the Queen had golden shares, which means like Serpio in the Americas, the Queen's got golden shares. And so this Great Britain particular facility, which is actually connected to a chemical warfare training, British, commando camp, how she's got golden shares in that. And so they just traced the paperwork and the legality and the patent office and all the rest. And it goes back, the genesis starts right there. But as far as the mechanisms, the logistics, the tactics, no, they didn't go into that.
Yeah, it's man-made patent and everything else like that. So,
but the one thing we did hear, there's one other bit of news now, and it came from some teachers in China, and they said that their first brush with the coronavirus was early on in November. And if you take, then that is actually the first case. Most people thought, no, this thing really didn't get going until about mid-December. And then we really didn't find out about it until like mid-January. But it turns out that these teachers, their children came down with it, or their students. They brought a doctor in, and they had to quarantine them or something, and they now know what it was. And so if you take a look at that military exercise called the Military World Games, also called Event 204, put on by the Bill and Melinda Gates and a few other type of altruistic, if you want to say that, organizations, foundations, where 110 nations brought together their 10,000 top, bioweapons type people in Yuan. And the name of the game was the coronavirus, and they projected and gained it out that it would kill 65 million. And then shortly after that, once these guys, all these mercs pack up and leave, what happens a couple weeks later? These teachers, all of a sudden, early in November, this thing starts to break. So go ahead.
When are we going to get names and addresses? When are we going to get names? Because, I mean, we can't let the system take care of this. I mean, we got to start slitting some throats here. I'm not joking. I know it sounds like I'm joking, but, I mean, even Jesus would be killing people by now.
Yeah, Bruce, I've heard a call for whoever is literally flat out responsible for this to be publicly executed on national television across the world. I've heard people calling for such action. And
this goes back to the Crown. The Chinese may take care of it.
Well, I mean, it very well could, I mean, we know it's a bioweapon. I mean, they're Francis Boyle. He's come out and said, "Hey, man, this is exactly what it is. It's a bioweapon." And from what I've heard, is you were speaking of these military games or this gathering of militaries from around the globe in Wuhan. When this, purportedly got out, well, there's information that's getting out that this was a kind of like what you would consider a governmental black market deal to try and sell this. I think from the Chinese or to the Chinese, and there's purportedly a big gun battle in Wuhan, and like 12 or it's like 3 dozen people. This vial was dropped, and this is how it got loose. Well, I mean, this is one of the stories that's coming. And I mean, mind you, when this first started breaking here in the West, somebody in the chat log on the station put a video in during my broadcast that showed a massive explosion, kind of the likes of Tianjin, China, there in 2013 in Wuhan, 20 hours prior to my broadcast when I first started covering this, when it started breaking in the Western. So, somebody has to pay for this. I mean, this is a crime against humanity. I mean, flat out, plain and simple.
Yeah.
Right. Well, what Wayne Jett says, and he just did an interview last 5 hours or so on Sean at SGT Report. Wayne Jett wrote the book, The Fruits of Graft, basically how they created the 1929 Depression. But he's saying that what he thinks is that the deep state kept threatening the various different power structures. And they didn't have the nerve to actually carry it out in America because they got a certain amount of fear of Trump and the white hats, I guess, in the military and the intelligence agency. So they thought, well, what we need is this is going to trigger an early worldwide global economic collapse or depression.
Yeah.
They said it was coming anyways, and so they picked China. And so he thinks it was the deep state operation actually dispatched from the Crown, who's been all involved in the Trump, coup, the dossier and all the rest, that they finally followed through and they go, okay, we'll teach them. And what Wayne Jett thinks is that it was only meant to be like a tap on the shoulder, like just, like 1,000 people dead, or like, you better wake up and you better start doing what we taught, but it got loose. And it was so effective. In fact, the actual name of the thing has actually been changed to SARS-2/COVID-19. And so it's got a mixture of the SARS, it's got MERVs in it, it's got HIV, now we know it can survive like 28 days, asymptomatic. I mean, it's like one hell of a weapon. And he thinks it got loose from him. And so it wasn't.
I want to ask everybody on the call. I mean, if I can, Monty, real quick. I mean, are any of you guys, like, let's say to this story, are you kind of like in the back of your head, are you like, maybe I shouldn't be touching this or something, yet?
No, not where I live. But I will say that a lot of people are thinking what you just articulated, John, because I think that's one of the reasons that they're not unloading the Chinese boats is the longevity of the virus, 28 days, right? I mean, it can go anywhere in the world. It can go anywhere in the world. It can go by train. It can go by boat. I mean, oh my God. I mean, how far can migrants get in 28 days, right? Think about it. If it's a combination, they can get from Guatemala to the U.S. border in about 2 weeks, which is 14 days, through a combination of hitchhiking and walking and getting on trains and, cattle, whatever. You know what I mean? And it can go anywhere. This is the perfect weapon. And the Chinese are the perfect.
And look at the fragility of the southern border.
Yeah, it's interesting that I've seen that been expressed on Twitter that a lot of countries around the world, and rightly so, they lean towards they're trying to minimise the spread of the virus, where they're tightening their borders and screening everybody. Then you have the general election in the United States, where people saying we should have open borders and let anyone in. It's like, well, you look like an idiot because have you seen the news? And interesting enough as well is there's a movie called 28 Days. To back up a little bit of what HiJacker said, I could see like China's got the infrastructure. You would have a lot of people. There'll be a scare, but the idea would is you've got the infrastructure that would contain it. If this was like I think it was said yesterday, genocide of humanity, this would have happened in Africa, and by the time everyone will respond to Africa, it would have been too late because Africa doesn't have the border strength and the infrastructure to have it, and it would have spread like one continent would have been covered by the time that the rest of the globe kicked in. So there seems to be there's something off about the whole thing, and it's not like it's we understand it's man-made and it either was released or was accidentally released. See, that doesn't really matter because we have to deal with the consequence of it being released. But still, I'm getting from deep side in my soul or something is way off with whatever's going on.
Yeah, and if you dovetail it into basically we saw the markets. I mean, the whole world has lost, I don't know, 10, 20 trillion dollars in the last couple of days. I mean, all markets worldwide. But also, you got this extra biblical thing with all these locusts. Now, I thought they were just like, there's like 800 million of them, swarms of them in like Africa. And then these couple of Canadians, they were in Saudi Arabia. And I guess a wind blew or something, but the whole skies were covered with just like massive locusts. I mean, there must have been 800 million locusts just in that cloud alone. And that was in the middle of Saudi Arabia. I think Riyadh. I think these guys were in Riyadh. Doesn't even make sense. You don't get locusts like that. So
no, it does.
Yeah.
That kind of locust plague type deal happens in desert areas.
Oh, okay.
They're called desert locusts, and it does happen, but it is starting to look pretty biblical, eh?
Yeah, well, now this could be part of the something's a bit amiss here. It's not divine retribution or anything else like that. Someone that doesn't like humanity has read the Bible and gone, that's an awesome script, we'll do this, because then we can do a bit of mind control and get all the religious people on board. Because look, see, I mean, Australia was on fire, Canada was on fire. It is looking like, it doesn't feel like it's biblical, but it looks like, if you just on paper, it's a perfect, someone's following the script of Revelations.
Yes, I do believe. I don't believe this is divine. I don't believe it's divine. I mean, there's divine inspiration in the Abrahamic texts, in Psalms and in the Gospels, and even in parts of the Quran. But when it comes to the fortune telling, the prophecy, I've said this before and I'll say it again. Here's why prophecy is dangerous, okay? Because you're using power. Okay, the demonstration of knowledge of the future is a power. And you're using this power to convince people to serve your God. When people are coerced to do something by power and they don't voluntarily join from their heart, there's kind of a double edge there. And so as we go through these biblical times, and calendrically, by the calendar, we're in the biblical times now, nothing happening is as dangerous as something happening. It's a loaded gun, right? And so, I mean, that's how I feel about it. Now, that said, it can't be denied that these things that were written in the Bible are happening now. However you interpret them, and I'm pretty sure John Wayne and HiJacker have a more divine interpretation of those things. Don't see it the way we do, Monty. But it doesn't matter how you see it. The fact is, it's happening. And dire circumstances are always an opportunity to get yourself right with God. Nothing like a little fear to get you down on your knees and asking for help, man. I'll tell you.
Yeah. Viking, if you're near your microphone, I'm just wondering what your perspective is of, do you sense that there's something off? Because I know if long-time listeners would know that you're going for the happy, if I can condense it that way. Try not to go with the negative, find balance, and become a better person. That's sort of where I come from as well. And I find it interesting having different perspectives, because that's the joy of creation. So I'm just wondering, what do you sense about the virus? Could you add to anything, or do you agree with everything? Or, well, yeah, just wondering what you would think.
Well, virus. If you look at it from a metaphysical viewpoint, it's frequency based. Okay, it's frequency based. So it's going to attack the lower subconstructs of our physical being, especially if we're locked into a very acidic, very compromised lifestyle with GMO foods, fluoridated water, and 5G. So one thing is to be aware of if you're trying to find a way to combat this, is to rise above it by alkalizing your body. Now, I'm not prescribing anything here, but what I do is 3 teaspoons of baking soda a day. Viruses cannot exist in an alkaline body. It's simple as that. Plus, when you have an alkaline body, your frequency tends to rise to a greater stature of your physical presence. And and also I'm being told, this is what I'm hearing, that the Chiaga mushroom, I just ordered some today on Amazon. It's $12 for 6 ounces. You start taking a teaspoon and a hot glass of water 3 times a day. That will boost your immune. So basically, stay away from processed food. Stay away from, city water. Get plenty of sleep. Turn off your phone. Just kind of create these safeguards. Now, one thing that this virus is doing is creating a worldwide conscious epidemic. People are becoming aware consciously worldwide. So this is the first step to global conscious awareness. I mean, we're seeing it first through the virus, and we're going to see it next. Last year when I was in contrast to HiJacker about the war opening up in the Middle East, my what I said was, what's going to bring us down is going to be a pandemic, and then a economic crisis through a black swan. We have a great swan here. This is definitely affecting supply chains. You got 10,000 theaters in China shut down. You got casinos. They canceled, the Giorgio Armani fashion show in Milan. I mean, things are shutting down on 2 levels: supply chain, and basically they're quarantining people. It's caused, as you said, I don't think trillions of dollars is even going to come close to what this going to do. Our bond market is in such a critical state. It's been inverted now for 2 weeks. It's never been this critical in the history of our economics. The bond market is collapsing. We've had the past 10 days, the stock market peeled off about 9%. This is just the beginning. I mean, they could try to correct it, but as is often said, there's a dead horse. Stock market's a dead horse, and they're shooting it with meth to try to keep it flexing. Well, now they're dragging the friggin' things. They're dragging this dead horse, trying to keep it, in a posture of illusion that everything's okay, and it's not. The only thing that's keeping this stock market and bond market alive is injections from, the stabilization fund, the Federal Reserve, and the companies themselves are buying back. There's probably 40% being bought back by these actual entities to keep it from imploding. It should have imploded, 11 months ago. But we have gone into a territory now of our economics that has never ever been seen. It's a big cover up here, and it's a matter of time.
How long can they keep the ship afloat?
Exactly, they're dragging this dead. What they're doing here, as far as with precious metals, 2 days ago, gold tried to shoot up. They dumped $3 billion worth of paper notionals to slam it back down. They're trying everything they can to keep this thing alive. And if the the market doesn't crash this week, I'll give it 6 months. But it's inevitable that this is going to happen. It's going to take place. It's absolutely Richter. I mean, the bond market's blowing my mind. I've been watching the bond market for 3 years, almost every day, and it's just blowing my mind how badly it's inverted and it's the lowest it's ever been. Most of your major bond markets in Europe are in a negative, so they're getting negative interest. So you're putting your money in to lose money, just because it's a safe place to put it. People are panicking. And I mean, what you got? China's banks are basically there's now 5 or 6 major banks that have had a bank run. It's gonna be systemic here. It's gonna be a systemic and roll over into the Western world. As far as what this is a pandemic. I don't think it's going to get to the point of wiping out 40% of the population, which some people are predicting. But I think that if you keep your again baking soda, chaga mushroom, and just keep your body healthy with alkaline foods, you'll have a chance of surviving this. But it is causing a global awakening beyond what anybody could have predicted. And I believe when this washes through, it will flush. It's going to flush probably in the next 3 to 6 months. You're going to have this whole. I believe there's going to be a huge change in the way the world's being governed, the way it's being, the way its economic standards are being mistreated. I think that this is just the beginning of a global awakening.
To back up sort of what Jack has said, that they wanted to have it small and just sort of be tap on the shoulder, a bit of a shock, and it's just gone gangbusters. And the Team Dark, they like to control their chaos because they see order out of chaos. However, they can't control this chaos. And so it's interesting to see how we can go 2 ways. But I can because I can see people are waking up. There's a lot of humor where people aren't sort of believing it. Like they do know that people are getting sick and some are dying, but they're not worried about catching it type thing. But it's how like gallows humor. There's an element of that where they're aware of it, and so it's just. Like as you said earlier, living healthy and wash your hands, stay away from have fresh vegetables and fruit, and even in the chat room, it was said to stock up supplies for 2-3 weeks, and if nothing happens, you have food and water for 2 to 3 weeks. So it's a win-win situation type deal. Because I know that is it Singapore or Shanghai outside of China at the moment, the boats because it's the system. That is the supply system as well as the economic system. It is pushed to the, you could lose food in 2 days, as Viking would say with the economic. They run it so hard where 5% there could be in a collapse type deal. And it's interesting that those systems are pushed to breaking point all the time. And I'm in the camp of whoever's trying to, the New World Order, Team Dark, they're freaking out because they have no control over what's happening.
The whole system's run on algorithms, and this is beyond it. I think the algorithms aren't able to keep this thing stabilized, and it's going to come apart. It's going to be the ship hitting the rocks, man. And this is just the beginning.
Right. Yeah. So the latest line of thinking. Because everybody's wondering why Trump didn't get ahead of this. And really, if he lets this virus get hold of the United States, people are already saying that he doesn't believe in science and that type of thing. He's come up with basically this virus is going to burn itself out once the weather gets warm, like most traditional viruses do. But this has been engineered. So anyways, the thinking is the reason why he has not come out and basically said to the American people, listen, I'm declaring a national medical emergency. I don't think he's going to use the word martial law because that will freak out too many people, is that he's gambling that this thing will burn itself out and they can control it before the markets completely crash. And he knows that if he comes out and he declares this, medical martial law, that he will actually trigger things to collapse because people will start to freak once he does something like that. Also, it's going to force him to, literally close the border. You're going to have judges jumping in, all involved. There's a whole set of protocols that go along with it. And so he's holding off as long as he possibly can. But that's what you want to look.
I want to enter, but I come across this guy's doing an interview. I can't remember if it was on Fox, but I actually saved the news clip bit, and the guy, he literally, I don't know if it was a Freudian slip or what it was. It was something about the Trump vaccine plan or something like that. I mean, I'm not kidding. Let me send you the clip, and maybe you guys can review it, and if you want to play it, I mean, so for it. I mean, if you can't, or whatever, if you want. But yeah, I mean, you're right. I mean, looking like this to further not only destabilize what's the world in its entirety, but it's going to be used to induce some kind of medical martial law where you're going to be forced vaccinated. So people better wake the hell up, I guess is about all I've got to say. Let me find this clip. I'll send it to you.
Yeah, well, it's looking a bit grim, but here's something to make you feel a little bit better. Imagine going through this with Obama or Hillary in the White House.
No, I don't want to go there, but I understand what you're saying.
He did pass a bill that he's allocating $1.3 billion. So what's interesting here is that the Democrats wanted more. Now I can't figure that out. Maybe they're making money on this, and I have no idea. But he has put forth that amount of money. But why the Democrats wanted more money? This is something I haven't figured out yet.
Yeah.
I mean, somebody's making money on this, no matter how you look at it.
Absolutely. We haven't figured out how they're doing it yet, but they absolutely are. There's no doubt about that.
Well, as a question for everyone on the roundtable, have the food prices, cigarette, goods prices, as well as fuel prices, have they fluctuated, or has it just sort of been the same?
Yeah, not yet. Not yet. Look for that to happen though if the virus breaks out in some place. Actually, most of America's oil is domestic now. They're the largest exporter, but Saudi Arabia or some place like that. But
oil has fallen. It was $55. Basically, give or take, 5 days ago, and now it's 49. So it's dropped like 10%, which is a lot.
Yeah, the economy is a funny thing. There's a lot of variables. It's supply and demand, right? So as soon as people are driving a lot less because of the virus, they're staying at home. I'll bet you there's a lot of people asking to work from home. That's the next big thing you're going to see, is a lot of companies are just going to let anybody who can dial in from home and join the network work from home, whether you work for a bank or whomever you work for, a software company. But this is one of the things that this situation shows is the incredible vulnerability we've created with this interdependent system, this interdependent economy, and centralizing everything into corporate hands, principally the food supply, everything. It's just,
that's actually, for the way I see it, that was part of the New World Order. They devised it that way so they could control. And then you've got this chaos element where it could all collapse. And China makes all the TVs and the cars, or Korea makes the cars. Australia has all the wheat. And if a country, for whatever reason, is quarantined like Australia, which is rather large, just for this example, wheat doesn't get to the rest of the world because you're not self-sustaining. And that's the ugly side of globalism. Now, Team Dark were using that as a controlling mechanism. And you are right, Bruce, because it's showing the normies or the general public why it doesn't work, why it's a failing of like a watch, it's great, but if you take one cog out, the whole thing stops.
Mm-hmm. Yep. Yep. So, I'm almost ashamed to say this out loud, but I've been saying it for a couple years now, or 3 years on Rev Radio. Your best chance for survival in the period we're going through, folks, is autonomy. To become as autonomous as you can become. That's not replicating what I did. You find your own autonomy where you live. But it has to do with a clean water supply that you control or is not civically maintained, arable land or cheap greenhouses with 3mm polypropylene, and growing some of your own food, keeping a chicken coop, and being in a less dense area, right? If you're living in, London, England, or Toronto, Ontario, or San Francisco, California, or Melbourne, Australia, and you're making, let's say, $60,000-$70,000 a year, which is a good income, and you've got your condo or whatever you've got, and your car and everything, what you need to realize is that if you went to a more autonomous situation, you could probably survive on about $15,000 or $18,000 a year. You don't need that much money once you get outside of their system. And that autonomy, see, this is if they are trying to kill us, and clearly, I think we can all agree on this call, they are trying to kill us now. This was not an accidental release of the Wuhan virus. You guys have all seen the pictures going around with the text circled in the 1981 Dean Koontz book, right? Where he talks about the Wuhan virus. The Dean Koontz, the horror writer.
Yeah, the Wuhan 400, right? Yeah.
Yeah. So this is not an accident. So we know they're trying to kill us. And, standing up on a soapbox and shaking your fist and thinking you're going to change these people, going out on the street with a sign and like they're doing in France, Macron hasn't budged. These people have drawn their line. It's war now. It's a different kind of war. We've talked about this for years on Revolution Radio, okay? And again, it's not going to come down to a sandbag war with rifles, okay? This is the water boiling now. And if you're the frog and you're still in the pot, you're in a lot of trouble now. You're in a lot of trouble. Over.
Yeah, right. And so what I'm concerned about now, this is what's got me really nervous, and I'm half paranoid all the time anyways. So I'm kind of a paranoid person. So the Iranians now, they're getting hit. They've had to quarantine something like 24 of their cities. Their minister of health or something, he's actually got it. His wife's got it.
Oh, God.
And it's not completely different, but there are different markers in this coronavirus, the one that's in Iran, that's different than the one that's in China. And so...
Yeah, it's not only replicating, but it's morphing. And, either...
Well, wait a minute, John. Are we getting to the point where these psychopaths are starting to throw bioweapons on one another? I mean, the Chinese, they realize how hurt they are, and they're going to be thinking...
Damn good question.
Well, maybe we need to send some coffee cans over to Taiwan and Japan, knock them back on their heels for a little bit. And then you got the Taiwanese and the Japanese and the South Koreans thinking, well, the Chinese are going to hit us. Maybe we ought to hit them first. And I mean, next thing you know is you got all of these different power centers, throwing this shit on one another. That's what I'm worried about. Are we?
Check this out. Mr. Rowe put in the host chat here a while back, on Skype or station chat. Slovakia Prime Minister now in the hospital with high fever and reportedly a lung infection. He just attended European Council meeting a week ago where leaders from all Western Europe were present. So that's just something to add to that.
Wow.
I'm playing the what if card. I've got about 7 of them for every round table. It does sort of lean into that the dark side's lost, and the higher ups have gone, okay, we've packed up our tent, we're going home, we understand it's no good anymore, and they've left the medal to lower management of Team Dark to fend for themselves. And if they're actually starting to eat themselves and try and, because like you can see all the politicians, the power's been the power that they've had has been taken away from them. Be it's the adrenaline drug, whatever it is, or just Team Satan giving that's gone, and so we could be seeing what HiJacker said, that the Illuminati, the different factions are trying to take each other out because they're paranoid, and they don't have ultimate backing from whatever, and so we're seeing their structure and on the other side of the curtain slowly collapsing.
Yeah,
it's a possibility. I'm not saying it's true. However, just putting it there. Go ahead, HiJacker. I stepped on you.
Yeah, imagine the Chinese realizing that the Crown actually is the one that instigated this. I mean, they send a couple of assets, like Chinese Jason Bourne assets with drones, and they go, you go fly over that damn castle, and you bathe those rolls in that shit, spray it, and the next thing you know,
there is precedence as well, because the Opium Wars, the British family, the royal family, has done this to China 150 years ago, and they were using opium.
Yeah, a good point there. Good catch, Monty. There is a little bit of payback there. Boy, another thing that's interesting is this really kind of discredits that whole Deagle.com population statistics for 2025. I don't think those are going to pan out. I think we're on a different plan now.
Yeah.
Some people want to say that they're actually following through with the original plan that they had, but that once Trump, he upset the apple cart, and Hillary wasn't going to be the one that quarterbacks in it, but that the actual plan was that Hillary was going to get in. She was going to work with the Chinese to basically sell everything, including the lumber from the house, everything. And then right in the end, when we were really feeling it and we're in complete grinding poverty, and they're not quite able to get us the guns, then they were going to release a bioweapon on the United States. We would get whacked up like the Chinese are. And then after we were softened up with this type of bioweapon, then the Chinese would move in. Hillary would actually bring them in because of a medical martial law emergency. We got virus, and so under blue helmets, the Chinese then the hordes would come and they would finish us off. And so that would square with what they thought the Deagle plan was going to be. But something has gone wrong with China and with this thing getting out of hand. So somebody somewhere made a big mistake. Go ahead.
Yeah, we're coming up to the break, so please remember where you are, John, because we've got about a minute to the music for the break, and so I'll do a bit of housekeeping. You're listening to Revolution Radio, freedomslips.com, revolution.radio. This is Planet Collingwood Open Round Table. I'm just filling in some dead air till we get to the music, which is around about a minute. So please stick around if you enjoyed the hour. Donate when you can. And we'll be right back after this short break. So get a cup of tea, get a cup of coffee, get a beverage, go have a spliff, whatever you want to do, feed the cat, go to the toilet. Just don't mix them up because it ends up really bad. I'm not going through that again. We'll be right back. Stick around. And welcome back to Revolution Radio, freedomslips.com, revolution.radio. This is Planet Collingwood, Open Roundtable. My name is Monty Dean. I have been joined by HiJacker, the Viking, John Wayne, not the actor, and Bruce MacDonald. I know there is dead air. Omega Legolas. I'm going to get that name right. Omega Legolas. He's in Lord of the Fries. Rings. Damn, I'm getting it wrong. Anyway, if you enjoyed the last hour, please donate to the station. Then go to the website and buy some T-shirts, mugs, caps, onesies for the kids, and then pop into the chat room. That's what I've been looking at, and you can listen to us and have a conversation as well as everyone else. It's feisty and interesting as always. And tonight's show is brought to you by SJ's Ninja School for Squirrels. Let your rodent defend you. And this just in, apparently Joe Biden wants your vote because he's running for Senate. Is someone going to tell him, like, doesn't he have family members to say he should bow out gracefully because he has no idea where he is? So I think, Mr. Wayne, you were going to start a point. If not, we can start afresh.
I I lost. I don't remember whether
Fair
it was
enough.
just a moment of conversation you guys discussed.
I'm sure I'll come back to you. That's what happens here on Planet Collingwood. It's like, oh, I've just forgot it, and then 3 months
With
later.
the Deagle report. Bruce was bringing up the Deagle report.
Oh, yes, yeah. Bruce pointed out the predictions are off because of this virus, which leads towards the mistake. Even if it was released on purpose, they weren't expecting this result. And so I think here's a question for is that what we're feeling that is off, where it doesn't seem like, with a false flag, we sort of know that someone did something, or the official story is off, but on this scenario, all of it seems off. I don't know. What do you think?
Yeah, it's not what I was expecting. Like, we all knew. I think what it reveals is that at the top, things are not fixed. I mean, you can look for general ideas, like the general idea is depopulation. But when you see something like Deagle.com, you think, wow, I mean, they've really project managed this depopulation pretty well. I mean, they've got figures on every country. And then when it actually starts to go down, you realize it's not quite as organized and in control as they think. And things change all the time, right? So this is something to take away.
You know what's interesting here is, as far as Trump's concerned, this is probably a blessing in disguise, because he's been touting the stock market and jobs and whatnot, and it's all been hyperinflated in a huge bubble. And he hasn't been extremely truthful here. He might have added jobs, but we've lost more jobs than he's added. And the stock market, as far as being the all-time highs, has been absolutely, as I said, 40% of it is being pumped up. Now he has an excuse why the stock market is crashing. If it crashes and the economy takes a dump, it's not because of him, because of this pandemic.
Mm-hmm.
So, are we at the point in the conversation of where do we go from here?
Right. So what are we looking for now? So if we think we got a handle on this, and this is the real McCoy, and it's gotten loose from them, and the markets are telling us that. Of course, you got the biblical angle with the locusts. I mean, you've got a couple things. So what are we going to look for? The next big thing is going to be President Trump. At some point, before this gets too bad, he's going to have to come out and get in front of it, or he's going to be accused in 3 months, 6 months, when everybody's coughing their guts out and dying, that it was on his watch that he let this virus get foothold, and he didn't do anything. So he's going to have to, do some kind of political protection, credible deniability, or that he did something about it. So we're looking for the press conference of President Trump. However, when he does that, that is going to trigger a whole new round of basically market sell-offs. That's when people are going to freak.
Mm-hmm.
They're going to start buying. But we got other things that might happen before that. Like, when's his next big public rally? When he gets 50,000 people together. Will he cancel that? We've already had the CDC. They've already come out and they've told Americans, expect your lives to change. Expect some hardship and some severity in your lifestyle. Your children may have to stay home. They've already come out and said that the pandemic is not a if scenario, it's a when. So it's, how long
they
it
absolutely did.
Right.
Go
ahead.
See, my fiance, she works at a lead teacher in a daycare for a college, And she said, this year, she said the children are beyond as sick as she's ever seen. She's been, teaching for a while. And I told her, I said, I'm paying attention to this stuff going on. At the time it was just, Asiatic countries. And I said, if this continues, you likely won't be working, because they'll shut down daycares, they'll shut down schools. I mean, just the basic structure of what is required to maintain a populace, which would be law enforcement, EMS, emergency medical services, and hospitals, would be the only thing around it. And hell, they could shut down stores. I mean, look what they did in China, and look how bad it is in China. They're bringing in incinerators, for God's sakes. And I come across a report, which I'm going to, go through it this weekend, of a woman who was in one of these hospitals, and they were literally carting the live, not dead, the live off to incinerators, tying their hands, tying their feet, putting them in, sending them off to the incinerator, alive, mind you. If this is as bad as it could get, I mean, this is literally like a viral pandemic horror movie. And my God, there's plenty of them out there. I think I counted them last week on my broadcast, starting in 95. If this gets to such a point, I mean, people don't want to imagine such a thing because it is such a hard. But could you imagine something like what they're doing? And we've seen the videos. Imagine it in your backyard. Everybody is so I don't know, programmed, but what's the term for it?
Indoctrinated. I'm just used to it.
Yeah, the indoctrination and just the willingness of if it is what it is, it is what it is. You're all going to
status quo. Status quo.
Status quo.
A hint of apathy. It's like, oh well, because I remember talking to people about, where slaves and economic slavery. Yeah, but what can you do? It's like certain people just they give up and they just, oh well, that's our lot in life. It's an element of apathy in there as well. Go ahead.
Well, yeah, they do say that
right,
starvation, that 80% of the people, instead of actually going animal, fighting back, going jungle, that it seems like almost all the females, but about 80% of the population just resign themselves to eventually dying. But there is 20% of the population which fight like hell. They'll turn into cannibals. I mean, they'll get meaner than snakes, for sure. Also, I wanted to mention John David Oates. Jeff Rentz sent her interview of the CDC, the director. That woman. I don't know what her name is. He sent.
What did he get out of that?
Oh wow, you got to hear it because it was on such. I haven't heard it yet. Yeah, John David Oates. He only got a little ways through it. He was only able to work on it for an hour. But of the 7 reverse speeches, talk about deception, talk about lying. I mean, the reversals were like, and we now know that, the American people need to pay attention to this or whatever. And she, her reversal was like, oh God, I'm just so fucking lying to these people. How can I do that? I mean, it's like off the charts. And then she goes, this is what you need to do. And, it could be getting a hold of it. And she says, man, we're deceiving them so bad, Satan or whatever. I mean, it's like over the top. It's like really freaky.
Wow.
Just be careful of the swearing, because we are actually still on FM terrestrial radio, and we're still part of the FCC.
Oh yeah, no, I'm just quoting her.
I know, because that was out of character for you. I'm just letting you know, because we are a family affair, mind you, with this dark stuff. But
also,
Go ahead.
Also, on these precursors, one of the ones we're going to be able to see, like within 12 hours, is if the market opens and that plunge protection team, if we have another 800-point down day, or even 500 points, I'm thinking they're going to hit it with everything they got, and it's going to be flat, which is telling me that if that's the best they can do, I don't think it's going to be an up day. I think it's going to be flat, one side or the other, plus or minus a few points. But if tomorrow the market's open and the Dow and our markets lose another 2-3 points, then it's on. It's just a matter of time. And then the next thing we have to wait for is Trump basically making his announcement, declaring a national medical emergency type thing. So anyways, does anybody else see any precursors that we can kind of see if this
over the past couple of weeks I've been keeping an eye on, I get all kinds of news articles that come out with all kinds of different news company organizations that notifications from, and I've seen reports where they're saying that certain states are seeing or are, what do you want to call it, observing people to see if they're infected with the coronavirus. I think it was 35 or 45 in Michigan. I saw where there was 7 in Iowa now. That was reported 15 hours ago. I think it's completely spread everywhere. And now it's just the chances of if you get it or if you don't get it, and if you live through it or if you die. And from what I've heard is like the elderly are
the immune system. Interesting enough, if we can go a little bit woo.
Here, Michigan monitoring 325 people. Excuse me, I stand corrected.
Okay.
Sorry.
This situation, because it is out of everyone's type of control. It's a type of out of control. It could force disclosure. I mentioned this, I think, yesterday, where they would release technology which defies science, which will cure people, because the breakaway civilization or the secret government or whatever, because you need humanity to just feed off or use. It couldn't be just a complete loss of life, because that doesn't make sense. Why kill the herd if you want to survive, type thing. And so that's one option. It would have to get pretty bad for that to step up.
Well, the biggest killer of this virus is the old people. It's people 50 plus.
Yeah.
If you're under 30 years old, there's not a lot of people, unless they get the secondary, they get it again, and then it can drop a 25-year-old security guard right in his tracks.
Yeah, and now thank you for sharing that, because that just reminded me. This will start the vaccine debate, because they may have they could bring in mandatory vaccines. What is that vaccine actually a cure for it? Has it been pushed through? There's so many variables, and will they demonize all the anti-vaxxers or the people that don't want it? There's a possibility. Is that the right word? I'm not saying it will happen, but in the world of what if.
Oh, they're pushing it already. I think Gilead, as they're already doing trial runs, and theirs is supposed to be ready by early April. But somebody else said that most of these type of these type of pandemics and epidemics, that the heat and the hot weather does seem to knock them back on their heels. And I heard somebody said, for instance, the Spanish flu, when it first came out, the first round that it went, it really wiped out. It wiped out a lot of guys. But then it was dormant for the summer. But by the time September rolled back around, the fall winter time, that it just went like gangbusters. It flared up everywhere. In
There'll be
fact,
an
so much by
the,
November 11th, I think.
yeah, there'll be
September,
an
yeah,
yeah. Well,
November.
actually, yeah.
They said
Strangely
the
enough,
war was over. They said the
yeah,
World War
yeah,
One's over.
yeah. At the
Yeah,
end,
go ahead.
yeah, at the embassy, which is the 11th of the 11th, the 11th month,
Right. So this
11th
could
day.
be. This
Interesting
could
enough, if I can just add, what would help that as well is, sometimes you get a winter flu, sometimes you get a summer flu, a cold. Is spring and autumn, because the temperatures are varying from cold to thing. It throws out the immune system just ever so slightly, so you could be susceptible to getting a germ because of the temperatures up and down type thing. There isn't a linear cross. So I think that would have been a factor in the spreading of it. Also, it could have mutated and just gone as well, because the spring and autumn is when you get colds, because the body's trying to acclimate to the temperatures.
Right. So what I'm suspecting is going to happen, and I'm doing this as me knowing the nature of God, is that God has actually got this thing set up to where He's not going to let him go full blast the first rung out of the gate. This first one, that something is going to happen this spring and summer. It will subside, but like the Spanish flu, come next fall, if we get that break, if we get another 6 months or 8 months, come next fall, when it comes back, it's going to come roaring back everywhere, and it'll act like the Spanish flu. Anyways, go ahead.
Well, you mentioned vaccination, and saying, "Oh boy, we can come up with a vaccination within the next 3 months for this, or whenever, say 2 months or whatever." Okay, well, now we've got the vaccination. Now everybody needs to get vaccinated so this thing doesn't come back forward, like Jacker's saying. But the thing that they're not going to tell you about the virus and the vaccination is that the virus is the vaccination, and it's attunable to 5G frequencies. So therefore, they can literally turn it on like a bug in everybody all at once. It's been vaccinated. And
Yeah.
these
And
people weren't fooling.
no. And also, if dear listener, if you're feeling a little bit down from all this talk, where we're just pointing out like what we're seeing, we're trying not to spread the old fear porn. However, if you want a good laugh, watch the Democratic debate, because there was so much hilarious things where everyone's getting spanked. Joe Biden is ever slowly going insane, because apparently he wants your votes because he's trying to get into the Senate. Like, I don't think so. And I forgot, I just checked Twitter. The other one, which is even funnier, since 2007, 150 million Americans have died from gun violence. As Tim Paul asked, did I miss something? Was there a second? That's half the country has died. Well, apparently someone wants to, and can you imagine him getting in? So it's worse than Reagan.
That might have been a Freudian slip. That might have been he's got privy information classified to the Deagle report, and so maybe.
Yes, however, sorry to interject, HiJacker. However, this is not the first time he's made a mistake. Over the last 5 to 6 months, he's slowly he's still like, I've got hairs on my legs, and when I'm in the swimming pool, and I let the kids rub up and down, and like it's probably number 18 or 19 of Joe being wacky.
Right.
But however, he probably got told something like this is possible, and it's just coming out. One of the debates, his eye was leaking blood. Like, he was actually Clotton Eye Joe, basically. So, yeah.
Right. Well, did you see the hit? Did you see the assassination attempt on Bernie? So what the Democrats demanded, somebody brought it up into the debate, that if Bernie's heart gets under 30% squeeze pump rate, so this is how it works. I know a little bit about this. If your squeeze rate or your contraction rate, I don't know, if it's in the 50 to 60% range, that is basically a healthy adult. If it gets between like 40 and 50 or 35 and 50, then you've got a moderately working heart. It's weakened. You're probably older. You start getting around the 30%, and then you've got an unreliable heart, a 30% squeeze rate or whatever. So now the Democrats are demanding that Bernie release his medical records to prove that his heart is at least 30%. So what they're setting up, very clever, because they know they got to get rid of Bernie. They can't let him have the nomination, no way. And so the easiest way to get rid of him without no questions asked.
Since we're throwing out different news stories, I haven't heard anybody at all talking about this. Philip, who was found shot in the head outside of his car, and I guess the guy was a DHS whistleblower. How the Obama administration was allowing the infiltration of the Muslim Brotherhood and the CAIR into political positions in the United States, and they found this guy knocked off on the side of the road.
He's shot in the chest. Who shot himself in the chest, supposedly, yeah. But my point about Bernie is let everybody know, for them to bring this up and to mention that means they've already put the bug in everybody's head that Bernie's heart's weak. He's already had a heart attack, and so he can go any day now, and nobody needs to, look this way, look that way. Everybody's going to be able to say, oh yeah, they were questioning his health and his heart rate at the clinic. But yeah, in regards to the whistleblower, right, DS agent, he was about to get married again. He was a Christian. He didn't destroy all these documents that the Obama administration wanted them to destroy. In other words, these list of all these Islamic extremists, and they found him in California alongside a road where supposedly they found a gun where he basically shot himself in the heart in the middle of the night. So yeah, go ahead.
Well, yeah, it's Bernie's 78. He was born in 41. September 8th, 1940. Of course, this is Wikipedia, so who knows? Hope for the best. And so he's kind of up there in age. How old's Trump? He's around about the low 70s. However, he's already had a heart attack while campaigning, and if he wins, he's got to keep that level of energy for another 4 years. I've watched The West Wing. I know, like, even the House of Cards before Weirdo went weird, and the level that a president has to go at, it's like 3 hours sleep sometimes. You can see why the Kennedys had vitamin injections just to try and keep up with just even like, I mean, there's public appearances and meeting everyone, everything else. Like, you got all this stuff even before you start running the country. And if Bernie looks weak because his heart will give out, that will not cause a constitutional crisis. However, has he picked a running? No one's picked a running mate yet. So who would be his vice president? Because they will take over if Bernie has a heart attack or he gets medically discharged from being president.
Oh, they're not going to let him get that far.
If I could, real quick, I'd like to say, I mean, if you think about it, like the president himself, his job and what he does and all of the activity, imagine being in, like, all the different switches into different time zones. Could you imagine what that would do to the psyche of not having, like, a rigid schedule of, like, sleep this much, the regular 9 to 5?
Well, like, if Viking was to chime in with this, China, I think I'm not sure if there is a New Zealand stock exchange, but Australia would be one of the first stock exchanges of the day, because it's Hawaii's at the end of the day, then New Zealand and the Pacific Islands are at the start of the day. Beijing is probably about an hour or two after Australia, or Shanghai would be, and so
their markets are already down. Beijing's already down.
Well, what I'm saying is, like, give it 5 whenever they the markets open here, which is probably about 5 hours from now. You'll get a guess of what's going to happen when London and New York open. That's what I'm sort of. You can see how it's really weird. Like as New York has a sneeze, The Australian one, sort of, because of the 8-hour sleep or
Right,
darkness.
right.
Yeah. There's a slight projection of seeing, well, they did that, and there's that response.
Well, I'm telling you guys, if we drop another 800 or 1,000 points, we're into it. We don't need any more. We're not going to need any more. There's nothing that's going to stop this. The elite they're already starting to grab their money, and so we can know within a very short period of time, like 12 hours or so, how this thing is going to shake. So that's the first precursor to watch. Then shortly after that, because Trump watches the money, if it does drop again, he's going to have to come out and he's going to have to blame the coronavirus. His advisors around him are saying, look, you got to have a reason why your crown jewel, your red hot economy turns soft. So you're going to have to go out there and you're going to have to put it on the coronavirus and, get credible deniability that, didn't happen to you. It happened because of this virus. So
it would also make sense because it exposes how the economic product, everything's made in China and China's shut down. You can see the weakness in the system of products where you may actually have small businesses or the positive pushback from this is, as an example, John Wayne decides, I'm going to start making cars in America again, or I'm going to make shoes here in Australia. And so countries can start having moments of genius of being self-sufficient instead of just everything constantly in China, because the governments like to have those Chinese dollars, and yet it hurts people because from an automotive point of view, General Motors is stopping or shutting down the Holden company, which is an Australian car company that's been here for nearly a century or something like that.
These guys over at they're called Trade Genius, and it's a bunch of really smart guys. And what they do is they look at scan the market. They call bets, but they made a lot of money. They put put options. A put option is when you bet against a stock going up against Carnival Cruise. They said they cracked out 315% profit. They put another put option against Apple iPhones. They dropped 5%. They picked up, I forgot what they said. They made 15% on their money in just a couple hours. And so what they're doing is they're taking a look at the downward supply stream. For instance, BMW, they need a certain widget or wire harnesses to hook up to the motherboard for the Beamer. And unless they got that, they can't produce it. So they're going downstream. One of the big ones, right. One of the big ones we're betting against is the pharmaceuticals, because it turns out that 80%, I couldn't believe this when I heard it. In fact, even when I heard it a couple times from a few experts, I says, nah, that's not true. But it turns out it is true. 80% of the pharmaceuticals and the antibodies come from China, and almost all of the little plastic baggies and the vials, everything comes from China. So the pharmaceuticals, they're going to take a big hit.
Procter & Gamble warns of 17,600 products using 9,000 materials from 387 factories in China are all impacted by the coronavirus pandemic. So Procter & Gamble warns 17,600 products.
Yeah, I saw an article a couple of weeks ago where the coronavirus, it's affecting, apparently the lack of condoms. It was one thing. I'm like, okay. But there's an interesting knock-on effect. And at the moment in my bubble, and I'm saying that in the right way, I guess, not noticing it at all. We're aware of it because of the news, and we talk about it. I've gone royal. We are aware of it. However, petrol's doing its normal thing, and food, there hasn't been a major... I've seen more Asian people wearing face masks. That's all. and but they usually wear that anyway. Especially, I had a joke because I catch the bus a lot. The Asian people wear masks till they get a cold, and then they don't, and they cough everywhere. But actually, the masks have stopped. The frequencies dropped down as well. So I think people who are aware of it and
There
being
ain't
cautious.
nobody in the U.S. wearing any masks.
Yeah.
No one.
But this is the element where I guess the word apathy would be used, where people are aware of it and now they're not. Like they're aware of it and they don't care because nothing happened, type of thing. And that could be a positive thing or a negative thing, depends
Right.
on.
Something like what we're watching, only the alternative, only the alternative media or the truther community, the alternative, truther movement, we are going to be the vanguard. We're the ones that are going to see this first. So what we're experiencing, the knowledge that we know now, 92% of the people, probably 95%, don't know yet. But trust me, once President Trump has to come out and give his press conference and basically making the coronavirus the sacrificial lamb of why the markets are all collapsing, you're going to start to see the mask come out. Trust me. Because that also is going to trigger the wave of the intelligent and the people who actually keep one eye on things. They are going to start to react. You'll see a wave, and you'll start to see a lot of things disappearing off the shelves. And depending on how big that first wave is, after Trump puts the alarm out, I mean, if they really hurt the stores pretty good, to where you're not getting a can of tuna or the paper, toilet paper's looking thin, then the next wave of the people who are semi-consciousness, they're still asleep. They're looking around and saying, is there a hurricane coming? I mean, why are the shelves like this? And then that wave is going to figure it out. Once that wave figures it out, then this whole just-in-time 36-hour basically distribution network we have, it's going to burn itself out really quick. And then you watch. When this thing goes, it's going to go quick. Go ahead.
I just had a thought, and please follow up, John, when I share it. And there have been a couple of farmers and stuff because of the trade war with China. They're affected, and so they've got food growing. I can see like people just buying American, so American farmers may not lose their products or the produce because you won't be importing from China. And so it's interesting to see how this will be a bounce back where if the media keeps pushing the fear, it can end badly. However, on the other side, this may be just sort of nature sort of settling itself out where will the United States with its economy and can it be self-sustaining for 3 months, and will the economy hold? I mean, could it slow down the slide? Sorry, John, go ahead.
That's actually me.
Well,
Viking and then John.
Yes. So one of the things that which I was really shocked by is the last couple days in the stock market. People have called up, that they have these online trading like Ameritrade. They were dialing in on their computer, and their accounts were reduced to zero. So there's 2 or 3 companies that actually curtailed more of a sell-off. People are trying to dump their stocks, and they were coming in their account, and it was at zero. Now, I just wanted to say that this is a way that they're trying to avoid a systemic sell-off. One of the things to be aware of here is like what they're having in China as far as the bail-ins on the banks. Italy is already experiencing shelves that are completely stores are going in. There's no food. They're already experiencing this. This is happening, and how it migrates around the world is yet to be seen. But one thing I'm realizing here that 3 years ago they were speaking of an event horizon that's going to change the conscious awareness of this planet into a nexus where this crash and burn scenario, we have no idea of the phoenix that will rise out of it. We are definitely in this event horizon where life as we know it, probably the next 6 to 12 months, will be completely different scenario. And I think that this is part of what you were saying earlier in the last hour. Find a positive note to this. The positive note is I believe this is in divine order. I believe this is a divine action because it is creating a collapse of the matrix. The matrix as we know it, with all these timelines we've held on to be our reality of life, is now imploding. We're being forced now, as Bruce was pointing out, to be more autonomous in our creative will to survive. And as I was pointing out, it is a frequency. You have to, if you rise into this greater frequency of your existence with a proper diet and meditation, and, you know, eliminate your stress and find a sauna or a hot tub and just get your temperature up, and again, the chaga mushrooms and the baking soda, I think that we'll be able to take a back seat and watch this play out. It's going to play out. When it finally plays out, I'm going to say 3 to 6 months, we're going to be in a whole different paradigm of how this world is existing. Also, wait, one more thing
you might
here.
be right.
One more thing. May 10th, we're in Mercury retrograde, and I believe it's going to get worse. And I think May 10th is going to be a banner point where we'll start to see things completely go into an implosion.
Yeah, well, Viking, you might be right. There's actually precedence for what you're saying. So one of the judgments on the fallen ones, when Enoch came down to them, you know, they said they sent Enoch up, and he supposedly went to the throne room of God. And when he came down to the actual full blood fallen ones, they said, well, basically, what did the old man say? He goes, one of your judgments is you're going to watch your sons, the giants, the Nephilim, they're going to kill and devour one another. And so that was actually one of their judgments. The mafia, one guy said it wasn't so much that people started to rat each other and they broke the code that killed the mafia. He says it just occurred to us after 30, 40, 50 years that most of us got killed by each other. And so it could be, Viking, you are absolutely right. It could be that these elite, they're all going to use these bioweapons, and they're going to start killing each other. And in 6 months, we're going to wake up and we're going to say, where the hell are the elite at? And they all whacked each other. They all threw bioweapons on one another. I'm going to get you before you get me. And they got all their little spy agencies and Jason Bourne types. They all got all their little weapons. And so you could see a war break out among the elite. Go ahead.
The Department of Homeland Security, came out there a few months back and said everybody should have at least 6 months of supplies. And they knew something, right? Is this what they knew? When that statement come out, is this about this, becoming to happen in China? Just flat out, just beginning.
They basically we're saying that knowing that there was an inevitable economic crash going to occur. How it came about, they didn't know. But this pandemic is definitely what's known as the Black Swan. This Black Swan event is going to be taking down. So this is actually Trump's greatest dream, because this is going to be the demise of the central banks, the Federal Reserve, IRS. All are going to collapse. And what's going to happen now is that what the banks have been doing for the past years, banks and countries and individuals have been stockpiling gold. And we're going to go to a gold standard here, I believe, sooner than later.
Iran's deputy health minister has also contracted the coronavirus.
Yes, I saw that. Interesting. Like, who is he being touched?
The Iranians are blaming the Israelis. But
they do that with everything. Let's be fair.
They do that. But other people are saying, no, the Iranians have got their populations. They're all upset. They had all these kind of protests until Trump killed that general and then flipped that where the protests weren't against the government. There was one big massive funeral, but now they reverted to they want to get rid of these guys and these ragheads, these 7th century mullahs. And so some people say, no, it's the Iranians. They got the theory that China did it to itself too to get rid of their 440 million old people, and that the Iranians are doing it to themselves to get rid of their dissidents and to keep control of their population. So who knows what the story is? That's the thing with these bioweapons. We don't know who's doing what. We don't know who's throwing what on who. I mean, good Lord. I mean, we just
Well,
don't
we
know.
know the United States has contingency plans. We know the United States has contingency plans for such things. We know they've got the damn camps. They've got the means, they've got the will, and now they just have to have the, fortitude to go ahead and move ahead with the program. They exist.
It's called FEMA.
We've been reported on for how many years now?
The FEMA camps.
Right.
Yeah, I think those are going to be, given the present administration, I think those are Democratic voting centers now.
Yeah, that's the other thing that we see. You're talking about the presidency, Bruce. We're taking a look at that if this thing keeps running hot, when Trump comes out, I think once he declares his, national medical emergency or however they form it, that it very well could be there's not going to be a presidential election in November. It could be so bad, so many people dying, none of the conventions can meet, nobody's going to theaters or churches. I mean, we could really be into this thing, and it's just like no way you can have an election. Oh, by the way, the military's already put out, John Wayne knows this, the military's already gone on an epidemic protocol war footing, and they've told all the branches of the service, look, all the protocols, we've drilled for this, biological chemical attack with the Russians, get everything ready, get the mask ready, get the rubber suits, all the protocols that we put in there, get ready to face a full unrest epidemic. Or no.
I saw a report where there was one soldier that has already come down with this. I've seen a report where a soldier has already come down sick with this. I'd have to see if I can find it again. But one person in the United States military has already got it reportedly from
the drills in South Korea. All branches of the South Korean have been affected one way or another. So now they've canceled the South Korean American joint drill. That's gone by the wayside. And they want to say we're arguing over the budget. It's because Trump is arguing that South Korea needs to kick more money in for the drill. But then we find out that in every branch of the South Korean military, people have gotten it. They've gotten the coronavirus. So, yeah, there you go. Another indicator.
And I think they're going to cancel the World Games as well.
The Olympics?
No, World Games.
There's been some World Games that have been canceled because of this.
Yeah, the Olympics, they have till May to decide it, and it made me giggle because the man who was actually telling the news organizations, his name is Dick Pound, and one gag I heard from someone was like, any questions? And the entire room raises their hand, which are not about my name. Every hand goes down. So, yeah.
Yeah, so you're right. The Olympics, that's a marker. The Olympics are going to be canceled. You can't have, 200 nations all coming together in the middle of a contagious virus like this. Meeting in Japan, that's already fully infected. So,
well, they do have 3 months.
I think we're going hot. I think this is it.
This is, as I said,
the thing is,
Finally, HiJacker?
Go ahead, Viking.
Yeah, Viking, go ahead.
This is what we're calling an event horizon. This has been prophesized the past 3 years in the woo-woo community, that this event will occur that will change the consciousness of this planet. And it will go through a systemic course of action, but it will die out. But on the other end of it, as I said, the phoenix will rise out of the fire with a different paradigm of existence. How and where and when, we just have to, as I said, just bet, as I've often said, best to prepare and not try to figure it out. Prepare as best as you can. Get your money out of the bank, put it in silver, stock up on food, and just get your body alkalized and watch it as a theater. Don't get involved.
One possibility of what Viking is referring to, now I'm not saying this will happen, it's one possibility, is that, as I said before, technology that has been hidden from humanity will come out that can save someone in 30 seconds because of it's outside of what we know as science. And that still it shifts the consciousness. Everyone will freak out. You'll still have, it will change everything. That's where we're at. I think John was next.
Oh, I'm just listening. I mean, there ain't really anything that I could add. I mean, if it is what it is, I mean, hold on to your ass. Because look, I mean, if it can mutate, if it can morph, if what they're saying in Iran, or if it is like literal, okay, I'll hit you, you hit me. Oh, okay, well let's duke it out with biological weapons. And that's crazy. I mean, but to say that they're beyond doing that, no, that's you can't say that because we know how these people operate.
And I do find it interesting that there's a small group of people that want to kill humanity because apparently we're useless eaters. However, we drop body, go past the veil, and remember that we're multidimensional spiritual beings that can tap into the Prime Creator. So there's I know dying. I'm not afraid of death. It's the dying part I'm not a fan of. However, once I die, I move on, and the next step, I'm in not a better place, just in a different place where I can remember and all this type of stuff. It comes down to belief system, but I never understood from a spiritual wall why they want to remove us from our bodies, because we become more stronger and we remember more.
Yeah,
go ahead.
The mission here is that we're not supposed to die. We're supposed to. This is the first time that a planet is ascending with its occupants. This is a flash in the pan. This is not going to create, worldwide massacre. This is going to be, 3 to 6 months, and then we're going to wake up. And this is what we're witnessing here in this event arising is the dissolving of the timelines of the Matrix. The Matrix is going to dissolve because we're going to be forced to see ourselves more autonomously as humanity, and we're going to also see the atrocities that have brought us to this brink of extinction.
And there's an element of the Mandela effect. Oh, sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, no, Monty, just to let you know, like in the last 45 minutes, our numbers have jumped up like 25%. I mean, it's like the numbers are like when Bruce MacDonald used to host a round table over every night. He had it built up to these kind of numbers. I haven't seen him for a couple of weeks now. So I'll hang on. If somebody wants to take the server, I'll stay longer, but it's up to you. I'll just let you know, you got killer numbers right now. People listening. So go ahead.
I'll be finishing in 8 minutes. I can
only do. If somebody wants to take it, okay, I'll stick around. If not, I don't have server privileges anyways. So there's nothing I can do. It's got to be John Wayne or, I guess. So anyway, let you know.
How can you tell the numbers? How do you determine that?
You really can't. But what you can do is you can go to like an internet hosting service. There's a lot of these internet sites in which they'll put up like 400 internet stations. They play reggae music, all kinds.
Got it. Yeah. Okay.
And anyways, if you take a look, they'll have their numbers there, and it's just a small sampling. But through that small sampling, it's actually pretty scientific. If you watch it long enough, you can actually tell,
Okay.
Yeah, there. And
where the station's sitting right now on TalkStream Live is the 30, let's see, 30, 31, 32. We're sitting at 33rd position on TalkStream Live in between the Blaze and David Knight.
Well, I'm happy with that because that's a very spiritual number, 33. So I'll take that on board.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a bit Mason. Go ahead, Bruce. So we've got 7 minutes. So thoughts, comments.
Yeah, I don't think human consciousness is going to be transformed in 6 months. I don't think we're physically ascending. something's happening. We're changing. There's no doubt about it. The world is changing. I don't think that we're going to do what we've done every time in the past, which is just collapse like Atlantis and Lemuria and that scenario, which has repeated itself more times than Atlantis and Lemuria. I think projecting what's going on here is extremely dangerous. I think that there's a lot of spiritual white noise out there. I'd be very suspect of so-called downloads or channeling or any of that kind of stuff. On the one hand, you have what appears to be the biblical narrative appearing. I believe this is by design. I think the coronavirus fits into somebody's plan. I don't think we have figured out whose plan it is in any of these roundtables yet. But it's the first of many things to come. And if I were a betting man, I would say that this is the beginning of the 7 years of tribulation. So this is not going to be over in 6 months. And as to this being an event horizon to change human consciousness, I would say, well, why didn't the Spanish flu do it? Why didn't World War I do it? Why didn't World War II do it? I don't see any evidence for that.
They didn't have the internet.
Yeah,
Well,
that's one thing.
A level of technology where, like, as you know, my example, which I got from Andrew Bartz's, is that this is a possibility. I'm not saying this will happen. It's in the realm of possibilities that a bit of technology that's been hidden from humanity, which is outside of the scientific parameters, where it's like, hang on, how can this happen? You know, even just an idea can change. Which will be sort of like the pebble at the top of the mountain, and by the time it gets to the end, it's, you know, it could be 7 years through the tribulation, because a lot of people are going to freak. Yeah, you tell them we've got a space station in the orbit of Mars, and then you show someone a live feed of it, their paradigm is going to shift completely. So that's sort of where I'm coming at, where just one idea can change people's reality completely. And you know and we probably end up being gods, however long, type thing.
Well, you know, Monty, I think if you don't drop the server, I think anybody on it can stay on it. I don't know how that works. If people want to run over, if nobody else is going to do it, I'm not going to do it alone. So why don't we decide right now before we go off air?
Well, does anyone else want to stay on?
Right.
I'm going to go.
All right. Bruce is out. Monty's out. Viking, you out?
Yeah, I'm out.
John Wayne, you out?
Yeah, I'll probably have to hang up for this evening. I got some plans to do. And
okay, yeah. So that's a wrap.
Take care of the day. So
that's a wrap. We did best we could, folks.
Yeah. So we've got 4 minutes. Bruce has shared. Who would like to share next?
Well, just pay attention, I guess, is the best I can say, because there's a lot of things afoot. If this expands, which I believe it very well may, just be prepared. What can I say? Be prepared for what shall come, or what may come, or what comes this way. Yeah.
Well, the biggest thing, if you go to basically the scriptures, it says that the devil's like a roaring lion, basically circling you, seeing who he can devour. So in these really hard, crucible times ahead, and decisions you're going to have to make, even to the point where you're going to have to deny yourself for the best interest of somebody else, or the best interest of God, which is really hard. Don't lose your soul. So, the devil's coming for your soul. He wants you to, he wants you to be nuts. And if a young family comes to your door wanting food, he wants you such a psychopath that you think you got to, break out firearms. Don't do it. Don't go crazy. Don't go cannibal or animal. Remember, what you're trying to do is you're trying to get out of this purgatory, this life, with your soul intact. Anyways, go ahead.
Yeah, you stay in balance and don't engage in the lower frequency. It's different language and still the same thing. Now, one question I'll go before I let Viking lead us out. What am I going to put on my YouTube? Because I'm thinking coronavirus 2. The coronaing. I don't know. I know we've talked about the coronas, but because the last week's show has done quite well compared to all the other ones. So putting in the subject, so because all we've done is really coronavirus and the effect it's having. Maybe I should just
mention the Four Horsemen, Monty.
Yeah, yeah, I did actually. It's the Four Horsemen. Parentheses colon from coronavirus to economic collapse ?
Yeah, well, maybe you go the Four Horsemen too.
I think that's good. The economic coronavirus to the economic collapse and what you can do.
Yeah. HiJacker, do you want to stay on with SJ?
SJ's mellow. I mean, I'm in. This is like prophecy coming here.
Yeah. Well, SJ will stay on if you want to talk. If not,
I'll stay a few minutes. I owe him that. I mean, the SJ, he basically kept me on the air more than a couple of times. I've been almost
SJ is here.
Hey, we love you. No doubt about it. You've been tremendously entertaining over the last, what is it now? I think we're on year 9 right now.
I think we're year 9 right about now. I think we're like an anniversary or something real soon.
Well, we're just on the hour, so I'll just quickly wrap up because I need an ending for my video. You've been listening to Planet Collingwood here on Revolution Radio. Please stick around for the SJ and HiJacker show. We'll be back in 6 hours and 22 minutes because that's how we roll. If you enjoyed the last hour, please donate to Revolution Radio so we can continue on sharing this information. I love you all from afar.
The Queen's horse is white, by the way.